The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies and the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everyone for your continued support. Meeples and Miniatures episode 248, 7th Continent, with hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs and Mike Whittaker. This show was recorded on the 16th of May, 2018. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. My name is Neil Shuck, and as always on this show I am joined first off by the Welsh Wizard himself. It is Mr. Michael Hobbs. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How is one?
One is fine.
Excellent. Excellent stuff.
That's not what you said earlier.
I wanted to see whether we could get through the whole start without you interrupting, Mike. I thought, keep it small, keep it tight.
What, a mess on that line?
Well, put it this way, you said it before I did. I was tempted. I thought, considering what has gone before we hit record, I thought I'd step a while away from that one. However, apparently we have a resident bard who knows no fear. It is, of course, Mr. Michael Whittaker. Hello, sir.
Hello there. Yes, I'm sure it's one of the bard specials is immunity to fear. At least if it isn't, it bloody well ought to be. I still haven't quite figured out why the Welshman isn't the bard either, but that's just another thing we'll just have to leave as a mystery.
Mike, you've heard me sing.
You have a point.
Indeed. Are there no bards from Yorkshire?
There's a question.
Well, there we go. Yes. Answers on a postcard too. Right, okay. Welcome both, and welcome you, our gentle listener, to another episode. Where are we? We are, I suppose, T-3, or H-3, shall we say. This is episode 248, and we've already had several people proclaiming doom and gloom to the world with the fact that we're going on holiday in a couple of episodes' time. But don't worry, we're not going away for very long, and we are coming back. Honest.
And at the rate Neil edits, you probably never noticed the gap.
That is very true.
I resemble that remark. Ouch.
So what's the plan tonight then, Neil?
So then, folks, what have we got in store for you on? Well, before we go in store for you on tonight's show, obviously, we are talking about the fact we are going away we are going on our holidays at the end of June. Remember what we said? Episode 250 is going to be our last show, and we want to do a big Q&A for that show, which obviously requires that we have questions in order to answer. So we need your questions. So please email them to us or send them to us on social media, on Facebook group, on Twitter. Prefix it with MM250 or episode 250 or something in the region of, something with 250 in it as a question. And please send in all your questions. Yes, please send us your questions for the show in 2 episodes' time. Only 2 episodes' time. Okay.
Neil, can I ask a quick question, if I may?
Go on then.
Does the Skype answer phone still work?
Does the Skype answer phone still work? That's an excellent question. We're paying for it, but nobody ever uses it.
Well, some would say this is a perfect opportunity.
So let's leave a little gap here for Neil to edit in the number, right? now.
Okay, what I'll do is I will now run a trailer of how to contact us. Okay, with all the with all the appropriate details,
including the Skype answer phone.
Yeah, because then people could phone in and ask their question,
and we'd play it live on air.
Yeah, and if they wanted to add a little, love the show, aren't you guys great? Don't go away on holiday. You leave us distraught. They may have a better chance of having their question actually played. Unless, of course, we only get one or two, and then we'll definitely play them.
I couldn't possibly comment on that last request from Mr. Hobbs. We always love to hear from you, our listeners. You can contact us in a couple of ways. You can do that via email at mailbag@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk, or you can now leave a voicemail message for us. The number to call is 0116 318 4114. Please note, call charges may apply. So, there you are, our contact details. We look forward to hearing from you. On tonight's show, we have our usual feedback as far as we'll have a chat around everything we've been up to in the last couple of weeks since we last spoke, which is actually quite exciting because it actually means that all of us are now I think all of us are now on the same page about a particular game. So we've got lots of updates about what we've been doing. So we'll take a quick break, go away, top up your beverage, and we shall speak to you in a couple of minutes.
I don't like it, Sergeant. Me neither, sir. Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad. Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir. How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant? 6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it Hi-Go, You-Go, sir. Hi-Go, You-Go? Good grief. And they don't like it, sir. Oh. Not like it? Seems pretty straightforward to me. Rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does. Well, that's all very well, sir, cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that. What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time. Oh, Lord, sir, lummy. Well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, Hi-Go, You-Go, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir. Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of Hi-Go, You-Go systems? Iron Bean Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield. Two fat lardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
What have we been playing? What have we been buying? We might even have painted something. The Meeples and Miniatures crew reveal all. So it's that part of the show where we catch up with what we've been up to since we last spoke. It's only been a couple of weeks this time round. So as we're kind of catching up with our audio, because some of them were like 2 or 3 weeks old, but we're kind of back into the groove sort of thing, ish.
Just in time for our holiday.
Just in time for the holiday, indeed. Yes, boy, oh dear. Right, okay, right. So Yes, it's been a couple of weeks. So, first off, we need to find out what on earth we've been playing. Now, I am intrigued to hear what you two guys have been up to, because you've both been, visiting or being visited by certain people. So, tell you what, I know I went first last time, but I went first this time, and I will keep it short, because actually, what I've been played is pretty short this time. Honest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just 40 games.
No. It's actually been quite quiet. I mean, with one thing and another, we missed a couple of gaming sessions. Terrible, I know. Which means that since the last time we spoke, I've managed to get in a whole 3 games. 3 games. We played a game of X-Wing last Friday with myself and Josh. And we were using some new ships, more of which as far as the new ships later, but suffice it to say, I discovered just how tanky ARC 170 fighters are in X-Wing, and got my arse handed to me. Admittedly, I didn't particularly fly very cleverly, but there we go. So that was X-Wing, and more on X-Wing a bit later in this particular section. I played a game of Seventh Continent. Ooh. More of which later.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh.
And then finally, I don't know if Mike remembers, but one of the games that we carried around on our backs it was trailing behind Mr. Hickman at last year's expo. Since we all ended up being Sherpas to his Sir Edmund, he bought a game called Yamatai from Days of Wonder. I think it was Days of Wonder's latest release, which is all about buildings on islands in feudal Japan, which kind of sounds a bit weird and niche.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but actually, it's a really good game. It's a kind of resource management, building, and screw your opponent before they screw you sort of game.
Was that the game we played on Saturday?
No.
Okay.
No, different one. That's a different one. But it's so after we played it, we kind of went, how come it's taken us almost a year to get this to the table? To which he can play. Oh, we've got too many other games to play, which I thought was a reckless thing to say with Mr. Luff in the room, because it just invited comments. But luckily we got away with it. Yamatai from Days of Wonder, really nice game, and we never know. A couple of weeks' time or so, Mr. Hobbs, we might get to play it. So that was me. A really quiet week this week on the playing front. So the floor is now open to you gentlemen who have been busy out and about.
You want to go first or me, Hobbsy?
Oh, go on, Mike. You go first.
Okay. Gaming then. Another game of Gaslands. We tried out. Dan down the club had an idea for a sort of Le Mans style Gaslands endurance race, which was kind of wacky and interesting fun. We insisted on everyone taking one 50-can vehicle, which got really rather entertaining. You ever seen quite how mad a 50-can motorbike is?
What?
Yeah.
Is can the sort of resource level?
Yes, yeah. Fundamentally, most cars you'll see are around 25 cans. So a 50-can motorbike has basically got every special perk responses it can get, nitro and everything else, and it's completely mental and great fun.
Cool.
So yeah, that was cool. Other than that, we took the Dam Busters game to campaign, Milk Kings.
Yes, that was last weekend, wasn't it?
That was indeed last weekend, which was flipping hard work. I've not talked so much in ages.
Really? You shocked me.
No, seriously. Certain degree of because it's the show that's open to the public because it's set in a shopping mall.
Oh, it's that one, isn't it?
It is that one, yes.
We got an awful lot of older primary school and young secondary school kids wanting to play the game. So a lot of talking, both of them and their parents. A lot of talking about the history, a lot of talking them through the game. Lots of people blowing the dam up. All in all, great fun. But I was pretty knackered by the end of 2 days of it.
I was going to say, did you do both days?
Of course, we did both days.
Well done. And of course, it's the 75th anniversary today, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Today, as we record, yes.
It's today stroke tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's worth knowing that it'll be too late now, but those of you who did go and see it, I suspect that the simulcast of the presentation of the Albert Hall plus the 4K version of the movie tomorrow in a whole bunch of local cinemas will have been excellent because I'm going.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I might try and get to one.
Yeah, it's 7:15. And of course, by the time folks get to listen to this, it'll be too late. But apparently, at 7:15, they've got a concert and presentation from the Albert Hall, including Dan Snow, one of somebody's orchestra doing the theme music, some practical demonstrations of how to make a bouncing bomb, which should be interesting in the confines of the Albert Hall, and some Dam Busters veterans and current serving Dam Busters veterans family and current serving RAF personnel, and then they're just going to show a 4K print of the movie. It sounds like a very good way to spend an evening, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
And other than that, we had a couple of guests down the club on Monday night, of which more when Hobbsy's done the rest of his stuff, I think.
Okay. What have I been doing? Well, I've had a few games of Water Tanker. About 4 games of Water Tanker. I went to Bristol, to the Bristol Independent Gamers, and joined the large duo, Rich and Nick, and Matt from Glenbrook Games and Ralph and a few others were all there. There was about 16 of us, and we had some great games. So I'll probably chat about the Bristol venue in a little while. So we did that. That was good fun as always. I had a great game of Classic Warlord, again with Matt and Ralph and with my mate Mark. And
yeah, that was over the Twitterverse, wasn't it? Or the results of which appeared over the Twitterverse last week.
Yes. And it was great fun, lots of backstabbing, and we blew up most of Europe. And of course I lost, but Matt won. Well done, Matt. I was a bit like Stalin.
I think you might have to expand on that statement.
Well, at the end of the game, Mark just turned around to Matt and went, "You make Mother Teresa look like..." No, sorry. "You make Stalin look like Mother Teresa." I mean, Matt was just a case of, there's a chance I might get invaded by there. I've only got a few armies holding that. I know, I'll just drop a thermonuclear bomb. That'll stop them from coming in. I can always repopulate. Just okay. But yes, that was great fun actually. I do like Classic Warlord. It just reminds me what a good game it is. So we're going to try and do a bit of a all-day game. Use sort of 4 or 6 of the boards and just play for about 8 hours.
All right, so basically, I think as you described it before, it's effectively diplomacy with nuclear weapons, yeah?
Yeah.
Or is it
so, yeah.
Or is it across a diplomacy and risk with nuclear weapons?
Yeah.
It sounds like it's diplomacy if you define it in the classic way as the art of saying nice doggy until you can find a bigger rock.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, essentially, you have the map is split up into various areas, and in your turn, you get a number of counters for each area you hold in an empire, you place those out. And once you finish placing them, you can then use those stacks of armies to expand out into empty areas. So say you've got, 3 counters on one area, you can move 2 of those out into adjoining ones to increase the size of your empire, which obviously gives you more resources for the next turn. And when you butt up against one of your playing comrades, you can fight them by using this wonderful spoof mechanism, which is just wonderful. So like I say, if I'm attacking an area and I've got 5 armies and I'm going up against 2 armies, I have a dice. I can put any number from 1 to 5, because that's the number of armies I got, on the dice, hide it. The other person has to guess the number. If they guess the number right, I lose that many armies. If he doesn't guess it, he loses one of his or hers. And you rinse and carry on. But it's a great way of psyching out your opponents.
That's a mind-bendingly devious mechanism.
It really is.
So you've got 5 armies. So obviously you won't say 5 because you risk losing 5 armies. So therefore I cannot. It's starting to get like the bloody Iocane scene in Princess Bride, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Yes.
I might put 5 in there, Mike, on the chance that you won't guess that I'm going to put 5 in there.
Yes, but therefore I should guess 5.
Yeah, but what if I put 4?
Exactly.
Inconceivable.
Yes.
I do not think that word means what you think it means.
And there's other little tweaks. So if you're attacking from a sea area, the opponent gets 2 guesses. If you're attacking into a mountain, you can't choose 4, 5, or 6. If you're attacking a city, you can't choose 1. So it means that when you attack a city, you've got to use multiple armies, more chance of losing them. When you're attacking mountains, there's no point sending in huge droves. You need to send in smaller forces. But it also means that if you're attacking a mountain that's an island, then you can only choose 1, 2, or 3, and the defender gets 2 guesses, which makes things like Crete, which is a mountainous island, very difficult to invade.
That's a really warped mechanic.
But it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic.
Can you still win the game by occupying Australia?
No, because Australia's not on the map.
Oh, it's broken.
The map just covers Northern Europe over into Asia.
Can you win by fighting a land war in Asia?
You can, but Asia is quite steppy, so there's not many resources in Asia. You need to keep your...
Oh, I'm forgetting. He hasn't actually watched The Princess Bride, has he?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
Yeah, but...
it's just lost on him, mate. It's just lost on him.
Wasted
on me. So, yeah, but it is an absolutely fantastic game, and I've had a few conversations with Mike Hayes, who wrote the rules. He sort of dropped me over hints and tips. He's actually saying that there's been a few people who've actually bought it because of what I've been tweeting. And he's saying he'd love to organise like a Welsh Championship and actually come down, because when he saw my blog post with all the pictures, he basically did a complete analysis of what happened with some ideas of, you could have done this, you should have done that, have you thought about doing this? Really analyses it. So he said he'd be willing to come down and actually take part in like a Welsh Championship, which sounds like a fantastic idea.
Okay. But it does seem to be, we seem to be having that effect. I was talking to our guests on Monday, and they were commenting that sales of Bag the Hun have gone up.
Have they? Fantastic.
Excellent.
That's always good to see.
And it took them a moment or two to figure out why until they actually looked at the podcast schedule.
I can't beat that. Other than that, I had a game of 7 Continents, and I went down to saw Jim Ibbotson, and we had a test day of our fantasy game, and we worked out a few niggles and glitches, and I just got to write all those up. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Cool.
For all that Hobbsy didn't actually time it very well, what we actually are noting is that, in fact, both of us got to play Water Tanker this week.
Yes.
Not only that, you got to play Water Tanker both with the Lardies.
Indeed.
Yeah. Shall we compare rules, Mike, and see which ones they got wrong?
It's kind of hard to tell, really, isn't it? But yes, we had 15 players.
Isn't this the first time you actually got to play Water Tanker, Mr.
That's
Mr.
correct.
Whittaker?
Yes, it is.
So
We had 15 players on 2 tables.
right, your thoughts are invited.
What an absolute blast!
It is, isn't it?
It's a whole barrel of laughs.
Yeah.
We had Rich, Neil, Nick ran one table with basically, I think, four assaulted Shermans against 3 German tanks, which was apparently a bit of a bloodbath if you were on the receiving end of being the Germans. Poor Colin had 2 tanks shot out from underneath him. And Rich ran Bartman Corner Overdrive.
Oh yes, I heard this from Ruben.
Or given that Ruben actually played Bartman Turner Overdrive. Because we were a little bit over for numbers, I sat kibitzed and advised Ruben, as it's the chairman's prerogative to do. I tend to wind up sitting out of demo games when there are too many to draw back and being the chairman. But having read the rules and watched the Beasts of War video, I was in quite a useful position to advise Ruben on his continued survival, and he did reasonably well, actually, because that's basically 1 Panther with 5 of the special abilities cards and a top ace.
Against everybody else?
Against everybody else in Shermans. And it's a fast tank, so he's getting... So your classic, your standard water tanker activation mechanism, you throw 6 dice. 1's a move, 2's a require a target, 3's a aim, 4's a fire, 5's a reload, 6 is a wild.
Yes.
So Ruben is also getting, in the Panther, he's getting any dice. He can turn 1 dice into a 1 because he's fast.
Hmm.
He can turn 1 dice that isn't a 6 into anything 1 dice into anything he likes because he's an ace. And then he can turn any 6s into anything he likes. So the odds of him not being able to move and fire, if he has a target acquired, will get in pretty small. And he took out the name of the game is the German win. Bartman wins if he takes out 5 tanks. He got to 3 but wasn't dead when we ran out of time. And he'd killed Gary. He killed Gary's tank rather painfully. It was getting shelled to bits by Dave Brown from the other end of the table, which was great fun to watch, actually, because Dave he was just sufficiently far away. Ruben was worrying about other targets, and he just kept knocking bits off the Panther. And great fun. I was commenting to a couple of my colleagues afterwards that there's a couple of games that entirely unconsciously, I suspect, because I know for a fact they haven't seen one of them. I'd be very surprised if they've seen the other, that the activation mechanism actually borrows off. One is Mobile Frame Zero.
Hey? What's Mobile Frame Zero?
Have you not come across Mobile Frame Zero?
No,
Mobile Frame Zero is this lovely little, I think it's free, or it's very close to free, war game where you build bots out of Lego. Which I'm sure we've discussed on this show before.
No, it doesn't ring any bells whatsoever.
You are strongly advised to check it out, as it is an annual fixture at our club, in that we have a scenery cupboard tidying day the week after the AGM, which the rules are you can play any game you like if you're not part of the committee and tidying out the club, but you can't use club scenery. So every year Rob Farley brings Mobile Frame Zero, because it doesn't need any scenery.
Right.
Because all you need is Lego. And it's a very fun and very silly game, and I strongly encourage, if our listeners are looking for a piece of lightweight, fun and entertaining fluff, I strongly recommend, and have some Lego they can borrow off their kids. I strongly recommend they go and check it out. The other activation that it parallels rather nicely is another game that involves borrowing things off your kids, namely Gaslands.
Yes.
has a very, very. It's not quite the same, but it has the same roll dice and given what's on the dice determines what you can do mechanism.
Oh crap! You just do realise what you just done, don't you?
What have I just done?
You just made me realise that Luff will hate Gaslands.
What? Because it's a dice-based activation system?
Because it's a dice-based activation system. I bet you. Because obviously, I mean, yeah, I've got tracks and everything.
Question. Can I ask a question here?
What?
Why exactly does he like Chain of Command?
Because he gets
because it's a dice-based activation system.
Yes, but we have kind of briefly discussed how Mr. Luff appears to have taken against Water Tanker for some reason or other.
Has he actually played it?
Twice.
Okay.
Second time round, I think he was attempting to perform a bout of self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes, by displaying, he I don't know, he just didn't get it. And then, yes, with you reminding me that, yes, Gaslands is a similar activation. Oh dear.
Yeah, but that aside, and sorry, Dave, you're wrong. It was wonderful fun. Really nice little lightweight tank combat game. It's just don't expect it to be don't expect it to be deadly serious. But that said, it does produce some surprisingly realistic results, all things considered. Obviously.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I went down to Bristol for the day, so we had 3 games, 8 of us around 8x6 table, and it was really interesting watching the dynamics around the table, because the first game I obviously got shot very early on, because apparently when you turn up at a water tanker event with the oddball Sherman, you instantly become a magnet for all sorts of fire.
What is that then? It's like it says you for turning up with a cool tank. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like I got a big target on my forehead. So yeah, I got taken out early on.
What's with the negative waves, maybe, honey?
Yeah, it probably didn't help that I turned around and went, because I'm playing oddball, I'm not going to button up, which didn't really help. But yeah, I got it. But the first game, you could see everybody was sort of racing around, having a good time. The second game, when a couple of players had the first kill rings, and we were playing a sort of campaign day, people got a lot more cagey. So you had sort of German players who started off completely in cover because they didn't want to stick their nose out. I obviously, put my tank right in the middle of there was a great big long road going straight down the middle of the table. So I put my tank right on the end of it and went, I'm going to go up that road, towards 4 Germans. And one of the guys there, Matt, turned around and went, go on in, I'll do the same. So we basically lined up abreast on this road. And you can see the German players going, what are they doing? As they were putting their tanks behind buildings and in trees and, wherever else they could put them. And by doing that sort of ballsy, we don't care attitude, we literally just covered that entire road because we can fire down it. And it was really interesting. And then me and Matt had a race. We decided to see who could get the furthest down the road before getting blown up.
And of course, because of the target acquisition rules, if anything pops onto that road and you're unbuttoned, it doesn't cost you any twos to actually spot it.
Yeah. I got blown up when I got to the crossroads right in the centre. But hey ho. But yeah, a great, really good, fun day. And I really like to give a bit of a shout out to the people at Bristol Independent Gaming. So Jim and Ellen. So Jim's the owner. Ellen is his partner. They both run in between them. Loads of space. They've got some great gaming tables there. There's 2 floors. They've got a shop, which is always nice. Tea, coffee, all that sort of stuff on the premises. And it's really, it's basically it's £4, so £4 to pay to play. You basically you pay £4, you play games for as long as you want, and they do a little scheme where if you pay £35, you get 10 plays, and you also get an extra 5% off in the shop. So lovely venue, really nice people there. I also met Steve Blease.
Oh wow!
Who was there. Yeah, I'm a bit of a fan of Steve Blease's stuff. I should have guessed because he was the guy who was walking around wearing a Panzerfaust t-shirt.
As you do, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anybody who doesn't know who Steve Blease is, Steve started he's been a rules writer for years. I think he still runs Wessex Games. He was heavily involved in the early versions of Flintlock and Slaughterloo. He's now involved with Hysterical Games, doing the rules writing for Panzerfaust. He's done some development for Spitfire as well.
Mm.
He's a lovely bloke. We had a really good chat, and it was really nice to meet him. So, that was my sort of starstruck moment. So yeah. So if you're in the southwest area around Bristol, get down to Bristol Independent Gaming. It's really, really nice people there. Good gamers.
Yep.
Excellent stuff.
Mm.
Excellent stuff.
So yeah, as I said, we just had Clarky and Fatnik up at the club. Two nice big games of Water Tanker, and it was excellent fun.
Cool. So there you go, Luffy. The rest of the world thinks you're wrong. What can we say?
And if you're coming to Parties Only, you can try it out with Rich and Nick.
I'm looking forward to OML.
Oh, I am. I'm really looking forward. That's going to. There's going to be an interesting conversation going on at OML.
I noticed that Aid had a dropout last week. So Andy from our club, that's not Andy Hawes, that's Andy Miller, who is the man who turns my stupid ideas into 3D reality, is coming along.
Oh, cool.
He's been one of the German CEOs for our I Ain't Been Shotman campaign. I don't know what he's got himself to play, but so he's coming along. So we can talk about all things mad scenery.
Excellent
stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so that's what we've been playing. Okay, so what's been on our workbenches? What have we been up to? What have we been building? What have we been painting? Well, I've actually managed to get something to the workbench over the last couple of weeks, especially since the aforementioned Market Larden is, as we speak, is not that far away. 4 weeks? 3.5 weeks? 4 weeks, I think.
3.5.
Yeah. And
help!
Yes, and I still haven't got my forces for my my Sengoku period Dux Britanniarum game painted yet, or at least finished. So the last couple of weeks I have been assembled and painted them. Well, I'm 2/3 of the way through painting them because I'm painting them all at once. So I'm like painting like 39 foot figures all at the same time, which I don't know. I think it's actually probably a darn sight quicker to paint in small batches, as opposed to trying to paint everything in one batch and just going through block painting all at the same block painting one colour all at the same time and going through everything. It seems to be quite a slow process.
Yes. Do them in fives.
Yeah. So, but anyway, all being well, they will get finished this coming weekend, and then I can concentrate on first off, getting a couple of buildings finished, and second, playing a couple of games, because it would be really, really useful to at least know something of the rules of the game I'm meant to be umpiring.
I don't know why you're moaning. I've got to write the bloody rules of the game.
So that's what I've been doing. I have been putting together and painting Ashigaru and Samurai, and some figures are really nice, and as you may have seen from a couple of reviews that appeared on my blog, some Not so
Not so
much.
nice.
Yeah, bit disappointed considering some of the other figures I've seen from a particular manufacturer. Yeah, their Sengoku period figures are a little bit disappointing. Never mind. Moving swiftly on. That's what I've been doing.
Never mind, eh? So, what have I done? I have redone the design for the SMS Kingani so I can print it for Partisan, because we're taking the Lake Tanganyika game.
Ooh.
I have not yet printed it, because it's currently right above, the printer is currently right above my head, and you wouldn't thank me if it was going while I'm talking at the moment.
Oh, I don't know.
It's a bit noisy, tell me. It's noisy enough to be noticeable, so I should probably going to set that going tomorrow morning. It's 2 7 or 8 hour prints, so once I can get those both printed by the end of Friday, I should have a Saturday to fix it together and paint it. Ready for Partisan on Sunday. That's, I think, about it on the workbench.
Don't forget the steamer.
Steamer's already in the box of things to take. Not going to make that mistake again. It went in the box of things to take as soon as the box of things to take came back from Salute. Because I'm not stupid. Twice.
Twice, yes.
Neil!
No, I've just done mine.
Other Mike.
Other Mike. I've been carrying on with my Back to Hunt stuff. So I finished my Italians. They're all done.
Woohoo!
And I've started the Luftwaffe.
Ah.
So I've done 18 ME-109s. And I've got
18?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Just in case. You know, they're a popular plane.
Carry on.
Come on, it's £2 for 6, Neil. It's £2 for 6.
Might come in handy.
The trouble is, if he wants to play Battle of Britain, he's got to buy some more because because once he's painted on having the wrong colour scheme.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, going for the desert camo style. There's an awful lot of different camo styles for the Luftwaffe. They were far too, flighty when it comes to their camo schemes. When they stick to one, it would have been a lot easier.
I think perhaps you were beginning to become a little bit, I don't know, what's the phrase?
Anally retentive?
Yeah, approaching. Especially when it went, especially when someone suggested, just do 3 or 4 different ones and then, people will never notice. I can't possibly do that.
I would know. I don't care about other people. It's me knowing that's important. So yeah, I've done the mesh spits, and I've got Stukas on the go now. So I've got 8 of those on the go. I've also painted up 2 destroyers, which we need for Saturday because we're going to have a game at the Eagle's Nest.
Yes,
which is one of Jeff's establishment.
Yes, yes, ships. Yeah, I mean, I know you were discussing Malta convoys, but, ships suddenly appear on the horizon. Okay, so where are they? Where'd you get them from?
That'll become clear in the next segment, Neil.
Oh, okay, go on.
Now, see, this is why I said last week.
Yeah, exactly.
You should do the bind before you do the painting.
Yeah. We should start with a confessional.
Okay, well, maybe when we come back after our holidays, we'll just flip it all around a bit, maybe. But I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Live with it.
Yeah. So I painted 2 destroyers, and that's it.
Did you have any problems with the camo patterns for the destroyers?
I had a little look around, found some pictures. And then I'll paint them grey, and I'll put some dark blue splashes on the side.
Yeah, it's kind of. I was looking at that because, as I think I said to you last week, I have a whole batch of the Skytrex stuff I bought off Al at the club, and one of the reasons I have painted them is looking at the possible choices of camo pattern and going, yeah,
there's a lot. Yeah, so I thought you can't go wrong with like a light grey,
No,
colour.
but you still got to paint the decks.
Oh, I haven't bothered. They're destroyers.
Well, the decks are still not. The decks are technically not light grey. If you look at most of the pictures.
Destroyers are odd. They seem to be. I think they painted the decks.
Yeah, okay, well, we shall see.
Yeah.
At some point, I shall have to start painting those.
Yeah. Battleships, I would paint the decks.
Yep.
But I'll be honest with you, Mark, I really couldn't be asked. They're very small models.
So which range did you say they were?
I got these from... Well, you'll find out in the next segment.
You're right, I will.
I will, yeah.
Onward!
Onward indeed. Right, okay. So the aforementioned next segment. Yes, it's time, dearly beloved.
Oh, we're so seamless.
Seamless.
Indeed. Together, and in the sight of the great guru of confess our sins, I've actually been relatively good. Yeah. Okay, right. I've at least been focused. That's one thing. I've been focused in the last couple of weeks. Basically, what it boiled down to is, as we discussed at the back end of the last show, just as we were recording, Fantasy Flight announced that they were bringing out a second edition of X-Wing. I've been meaning to do a blog post about second editions. And funny enough, there's, it's like, oh, did somebody else notice a second edition, something that got announced last week? Don't think it was long since the first one.
What game is that?
Age of Sigmar? Did you not?
Oh, God, yeah.
Did you miss? Did you miss that bombshell from Warhammer Fest?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
That would have required me to pay attention.
I'm sure Mr. Hobbs was paying attention to something else. We might discuss that a bit later. Yes. Anyway. So yes. With the announcement of second edition X-Wing, and obviously you may have gathered that following our discussion, I'm not really that bothered about going second edition. But I'm bothered that the last remnants of first edition models that I might want may disappear before I get a chance to purchase them. Which has basically meant that there has been a slight amendment to my purchasing priorities. Which basically meant that and then who was it? Oh, Magic Madhouse had a May the 4th had a May the 4th weekend sale. They basically put 25% off all their Star Wars range. Absolutely everything was 25% off. So anyway, so I picked up some X-Wing ships that I've been missing, and I can now report that I've now got all the ships that I was intending on getting for Heroes of the Artillery Cluster and first edition. So I picked up a couple of Art 170s. I picked up the Rebel Aces pack, bought a U-Wing, and then this week it's still yet to arrive. But this week I picked up a Rebel Transport. So that's everything that I need for Heroes of the Artillery Cluster and everything that I was originally intending on buying. I'm very tempted by the other capital ships in the X-Wing range. They are, some of them are easy to get hold of than others. But I'm suddenly kind of thinking, oh, it would be really nice to get a Tantive 4, and maybe an Imperial Raider, and well, if I'm getting those two, I might as well get the other one as well. But it's like, I'm then going to go, but the Games Expo's in 3 weeks' time. Back away, Neil, back away. So I'm trying to be good, till at least after the Games Expo. So that is almost everything except for a big, huge shout out to podcast listener, Brian in Luxembourg, who incredibly kindly heard on one of the shows that that I was very interested in getting hold of a copy of the Castle Ravenloft D&D board game, and contacted me after he'd heard the show and said, "I've got it. We don't play it anymore. Do you want it?" I was like, "Yeah."
Oh, the tragedy.
Oh, the tragedy, indeed. So basically, he let me have it for the postage cost, which was incredibly kind of him. So thank you to Brian. I am now the proud owner of Castle Ravenloft. That looks good. And yes, one of the figures in the game is a Draco Lich. That's a bit nasty. It's like I don't remember him from the original scenario, but there we go.
Yeah, the original scenario is just an absolute legendary piece of scenario.
Oh, it is. Yes, it is. It is Weiss and Hickman at their very best.
I think I've said the number of times that various gaming groups I've played it in. It is kind of an unwritten rule that if the average party hit points for the last dozen or so pages is not negative, you're doing something wrong.
Indeed.
I think every time we've done that, we've had more party members unconscious or negative hits, and the rest sharing the remaining positive hit between them.
Yes.
If it's well GM'd, anyway.
And that is, and that was me, quite restrained this month.
Oh, very restrained.
Well, that's what it is. Yes.
Me. I bought an M18 in 28mm off Ruben, just so I have something to play water tanker with, as I don't otherwise own any 28mm tanks.
And of course, you only need one tank.
Really? Yes. And I thought it'd be quite fun to have a tank destroyer because it'll be blisteringly fast and die rapidly, which is about the kind of thing I like. So.
So you got a Hellcat?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Except for the fact that isn't. I don't think a Hellcat's tier 1, is it?
It doesn't matter.
It's a paper thinner. It's just a token. Hang on, sorry, wrong.
It's only a token.
wrong quote. But nah, hell, it doesn't matter. You're only there to have fun. Other than that, I did go to campaign.
Yeah.
And we were right next to War Games Workshop.
So,
and I don't know if folks have seen what War Games Workshop's normal show stall is like. It's about 20 feet of board games, 3 deep. So I bought, some of you may remember, 2 or 3 years ago, one of my top 5 was the Legends of Andor cooperative RPG board game thing. So I bought the first supplement, first big box expansion to that, so we've got another batch of scenarios to play. And I bought Flamme Rouge and its expansion.
Flamme Rouge,
which is entirely not a war game. It's a Tour de France style cycle race board game.
Oh,
it's
yes,
brilliant.
yes,
It's really cute. It's a really nice game.
Is that similar to the Giro Italia game?
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
did?
Kind of. It's
right,
basically you get a modular track sections and plastic cyclists and
Yes.
a rather clever energy management system where you have a deck with a fixed number of cards of each value in. And the tracks are designed such that you will just about run out of those by the end of the race. So it's a tricky, and then there are things like slipstreaming rules, and if you are stuck out in the lead of a pack, you pick up an extra card for your deck, which is an exhaustion card, which only allows you to move 2. And it's all quite a nice and elegant little system, and it's also only about a 30 to 40 minute game. If you look at some of the reviews online. And I've been hankering after it for a while, and he had both it and the expansion for fairly reasonable money, so I bought them.
Excellent.
And slightly belatedly, I should have mentioned it a few weeks ago, but since we're going to be discussing it, the first half of my 7th Continent Kickstarter arrived.
Right, okay, so have you bought the card sleeves for it?
I have bought the card sleeves.
Have you sleeved it?
Yeah.
You have sleeved it?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
It is, however, quite a big box.
Indeed it is. Yes. Okay, so I'll take it then that you haven't played it.
No. There will be no sleeving without playing without sleeving.
Which, as we will come on to, is actually probably a good thing. We'll come on to that a bit later.
Since my lovely wife is the kind of person who not only can, but quite enjoys sitting there with a monotonous and repetitive task while watching TV, she kindly volunteered to do most of the sleeving.
I think you need to sleeve the action deck myself.
Probably should sleeve it all, to be honest.
Oh, can't be arsed. There's too many cards.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 shrink rack decks, which I assume have all got about 50 cards in.
Yeah. Ish.
Yeah.
Sorry, and there's another pile of them under here. Oh no, those are the dividers.
Those are the dividers.
Yeah.
I think I'm up to about 2,000 plus cards.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for the other half of the pledge to arrive, which is all the playable expansions.
With all the expansions in, yes.
Yep.
Yes. Right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Okay, well, that's you then.
I am rather looking forward to getting this out and playing it. As you say, it does need the card sleeving.
Well,
a lot.
If nothing else, it helps with the shuffling. But we digress. This is something we should be discussing in a few minutes' time.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. So, right. So is that you done, Mr. Whittaker?
That's me done, sir.
Mr. Hobbs. Okay, so now you can spill the beans on where on earth you bought these ships from.
Ships. Well, I did start off quite well this month.
Oh dear.
I know we've all heard this before. So,
yeah, there's a book coming, don't you? Yeah.
I bought a dice mat.
A what?
I bought one of those foldable dice mats.
Oh, yeah.
Because I got a really bad habit of rolling dice on tables and knocking over trees and figures and things. So I thought I'll just buy myself a little dice mat that folds up, which I got off Amazon for about £10. It's very nice. Right, on to interesting things. Yes, 1 by 1 250th scale ships from Magister Militarium.
Magister Militum.
That's the ones.
Right, okay. Oh, right, okay, that's where they're from.
Yeah, so I bought them. So I bought 2 destroyers, a Hunt class 1 and 2, and 3 merchantmen. 1 nice big sort of oily tanker one, and 2 general merchantmen, which I thought would make a nice little convoy on the way to Malta. I'm not going to do a full convoy because I need a bigger table.
So they're roughly half the scale of the planes.
Yeah. So each ship is about 7 centimeters long. The big one,
got this really nice piece of lino if you need it, obviously.
Yeah, can you etch a hex map onto it, please, Mike? 1.5 inch. It won't take you long. Yeah, so I got those. So I'll enjoy painting those up. They're going to be great. And I got a few more planes. Just to...
Really?
Yeah, well... Jeff and Ty were after a few packs each, and I thought, well... So I bought some Gloucester Gladiators.
Hey!
You've got to have Gloucester Gladiator if you're doing Malta.
Well, you got to have 3 of them.
Yeah. They come in packs of 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a pack of those, and I bought a couple of Sunderlands because
you were short.
Yeah, the short ones. Because Tumbling Dice do a nice one.
Sorry, carry on.
Good. Because Tumbling Dice do a nice one on a nice scenic base.
What, a plane on a base? Surely not.
Yes, it's like the ocean with a little man rowing towards it, like a rescue pilot.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, cool.
And I thought that'd make a nice little objective for a scenario. So I got the one which I thought would be the landed on the ocean one, and I got one for flying. So yeah, I got them, and I also bought a couple of swordfish because you got to have a raid on the Bismarck, haven't you?
If you've got a Bismarck, did you buy a Bismarck?
Jeff's got one.
Hi, Jeff.
In what scale is Jeff's?
I think it's one. It's the Airfix one. So it's
Oh right, it's quite a meaty one then. Yes,
It's 1/600th.
Yes, it is 1/600 scale. Yeah, because it's the Airfix one, so it's the same scale as the aircraft.
yeah. But I make a fun little
and
mission.
for what it's worth, Airfix have just reissued it in its original package, in its original vintage packaging.
Yeah. Yeah. So well, that'll be fun. So that's what I bought up until last Saturday.
Oh yes, because last Saturday was it was that fateful day, that fateful annual day at Firestorm, wasn't it?
Yes, it was the Firestorm biannual Bring and Buy or tabletop sale, which me, Ty, and a couple of us decided to go along to, and that's where we played Water Tanker and Seven Continent. And there was a pandemic tournament as well, which Ty got involved in. So yeah, I wasn't looking for anything. I thought, I'm not going to buy anything. I'm going to be good. And I walked in, and Ty grabbed me and went, "Come and have a look at these Vikings. There's a guy over here selling loads of painted Vikings, and I want to know how many to buy for a force for the fantasy game."
Right.
To which I replied, "You buy them all." You know,
As you
know,
yeah.
as you do, yeah. You went, no, I can't buy them all. I just need to know what you want for force. So you want all of them. So we went over. As I walked over, it was a guy whose name I've forgotten. And he is a podcast listener, and I'm really, really sorry. But he looked at me and went, "I've got a book that you want." As he brought out a copy of Malta Strikes Back.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I got that, which actually Ty paid for because I had his planes. So I had that for nothing. Bonus. I then walked back down the aisle and I noticed there's a guy selling a whole load of painted epic stuff, including a whole Chaos Army fully painted.
Ah.
And I went, "I'd love to buy that, but I just haven't got any cash on me." He went, "I take PayPal."
Curse you.
Curse him. Yes. So I now have a Chaos Army for Epic. And it's very, very nice.
Is that the one you were missing?
Yep. I used to have a Chaos Army and I lost it years ago. So there we go.
It's now a bad time to point out that I believe Ruben actually has some Epic in stock.
Some Epic? Really?
Mm.
Tell him to drop me a mail.
I might just do that.
Yes.
Nice.
So there we go. Here end of the confessional, etc.
Not too bad a time, but let's just sort of point out the fact that this weekend is Partisan, and then in 2 weeks' time is of course the UK Yanks Expo. So yes, so the next time you listen to us, it's likely to be complete and utter carnage. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Oh! Before we go, there is of course the latest instalment of our new favourite section.
Oh yeah, what's Dave been up to?
What's Dave been up to? Well, not that I'm saying he's predictable,
but okay. Now
you may remember that for my birthday last year, I went on a 2-day airbrush course at Barwell Bodyworks. Do you remember that?
I do indeed, yes.
You did indeed tell us that Dave was likely to be going.
Indeed. Okay, so those of you in the UK, if you go around the shows, you will see Steve and his good lady. I'm afraid, sorry, her name escapes me. From Barwell Bodyworks, they do an airbrush store at most of the shows now, and terrific bloke, fantastic teacher. And yeah, indeed, I'm not quite sure exactly how it happened, but Dave ended up on the same course that I did. Lo and behold, when I went round to Dave's on Monday night in his hobby room, he's now the proud owner of a compressor with an air tank, and a Patriot Badger airbrush. And he started a set of militaire airbrush paints. Not predictable at all. So yes, despite the fact he was saying, I'm trying to be good because the UK Expo is coming up, he goes on an airbrush course and buys a complete starter kit before the end of the weekend. What can you do?
Yeah.
So, yes, predictable in the extreme, what can you say? But that's the only thing he's been up to. It's time to go into the rules. It's the Meeples and Miniatures in-depth review. We go deep. Really deep.
No, I mean really, really deep.
Now, this is a game that, well, certainly one of us has been droning on about for ages.
Hello.
A long, long time. And funnily enough, he droned on about it so much that my other mate Dave then backed the reprint Kickstarter, and that arrived a few weeks ago, and we actually managed to get a game of it on Monday night for the first time. Mike's obviously been playing it for ages, and as we ascertained during the previous segment, Mr. Whittaker also owns this game.
It actually arrived a few weeks ago. It's just been sat on the shelf waiting for me to have time to start sleeving the cards. But
indeed,
yeah.
So he at least vaguely knows what we're talking about. But yes, the game.
I have played Ash and Pippers from the club's copy once.
Oh! So you have played it.
As those of our readers who actually pay attention to our What We Did segments will know. Which is more than can be said for some of our presenters.
I remember, Mike, because we had a nice chat about it.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So, Seventh Continent. It's a cardboard game published by a company called Serious Pulp.
Yeah.
Pulp. Right. Okay. Designed by Ludovic Rowdy and Bruno Sauter. Artist work by Ludovic Rowdy. It is for 1 to 4 players, so yes, it is a solo game. Yes, I like this on Board Game Geek. Playing time 5 to 1,000 minutes.
And the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the moment, for those of you who take interest in Board Game Geek, it's currently rated at 8.7 on Board Game Geek, and is currently number 10 in the overall ranking of board games on Board Game Geek. So that's where it is. It came out last year, and certainly took Mr. Hobbs by storm, and he has, as I say, he has on several occasions talked to me about it. I remained, I think, sceptical. I think was the way I kind of I think I was a bit sceptical. I think was my initial reaction. However, Mr. Hobbs, we put ourselves into your fully capable hands to explain what is so good about the Seventh Continent, which I believe was your number 1 game last year, was it?
That's a very good question, Neil.
It was certainly up there.
It was certainly up there, and it's one that I refuse to answer on the grounds that I can't remember. was a long time ago. Right, Seventh Continent. Right, it's an unusual game. I think we can all agree on that. So it's a game where you start off not really knowing what's going on, and that whole not knowing what's really going on carries on throughout the game until you finish. However, I've never actually finished it. So it's essentially an exploration game. The premise is that there's this land that's been discovered by Antarctica called the Seventh Continent. The game is set in 1903, and you play an explorer who's just returned from that island, and you work out that whilst you were there, you have been cursed by something, and you have this need to get back and divest yourself of the curse. And so when there's multiple players, you've all basically been cursed. So you'll have a group of you, sort of 1 to 4 people go back to the island to try and lift this curse. And all you really have is a clue, which might be a map, might be a snippet of text. The game comes with, I think there's 4 or 5 curses in the core game.
Yeah.
And then you've got expansions which give you more. I think I've got about 7 or 8 now. Individual curses. And you don't have to play one curse, you can play multiple, so you can put multiple curses into the game to try and lift them all. But obviously the more you put in there,
as I say, yes, if the game with a single curse wasn't difficult enough. Yeah.
Yes. So you have an idea of what you need to do. But you basically start off in a piece of terrain. So the game is made up of many, many thousands of 8 centimetre square cards.
Now that's a weird size for a card, is it not?
It is a weird size.
Yes, no.
But it works.
It's a very, very sensible size when you're trying to build a square grid of land tiles.
Well, yes.
That is right.
Well,
yes.
Yes, it is true, but okay. And this is actually one thing where sleeving is actually quite important, because if you've ever tried,
I don't know.
because if you've ever tried to shuffle 8 centimetre square cards,
it's not easy.
No, however, it's a darn sight easier if they're sleeved.
Yes,
because at least they don't stick together.
Yeah. So the game is based around cards. You basically have a large box, all separated by various numbers. So each card has a number on it, and the cards that are in there are split up into various types. You have the majority of them are terrain cards, which map out the island or the continent. You can also have permanent event cards. You can have temporary event cards. So permanent events are things that are always there. That, for example, in the very first scenario that you tend to play, on the very first card, there is a cliff. And if you look at this cliff, it puts into play a permanent event, which basically gives you the chance to go and have a look on the top of the cliff. But that event card stays on the table all the way through. You can then have temporary events, which are things that just sort of happen when you tend to look at things. So I'm probably trying to jump ahead because there's a lot to sort of get into, but these terrain cards are key to the whole game. Each terrain card is beautifully mapped. There's lots of little details on the map, which may or may not mean things. Like you may have a little bit of coloration on a piece of rock, which you may find out later that you can use to make rope from. Or there might be a bush.
It is worth noting that one of the things that comes in the box is a magnifying glass. And by gum, do you ever need it?
Yes. Yeah, and there's all this beautiful design on it, and you don't know what it means. But eventually you might get a clue to what this particular thing means. But the main part of the cards will show you, obviously, the map area. you'll have some exits, top, sides, and bottom, which are linked to the next part of the continent. And on those areas, you have these other cards, which are basically, they're called exploration cards, and they're like fog. Yes. And they go face down, and you can look at them. And if you decide to look at them, you turn them over, and something will happen. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Right. But that's the only way to get off the individual terrain that you're on. Also on them, these map cards are things that you can look at. So, for example, on the very first one, there is a little area by the cliff. Now, all of these things that you can look at or do, which are on the card, have a penalty cost and a target value. And this brings us on to the next whole thing, which is you have an action deck. Okay, so the other main part of it is this thing called the action deck. And the action deck starts off about 50-odd cards. You add an extra couple of cards for each character who takes part in the adventure. You also have some cards in there for the curse and for other curses. So you have about 60 cards. And whenever you want to do anything in this game, you turn over a certain number of these action cards. And this action deck equates to your life. Because once you've turned over all of the action cards, they all go into a thing called the discard pile. You then start taking cards from the discard pile. And if you're doing that and you find one of the curse cards, and there's 5 curse cards in the action deck, the game finishes. So what you want to basically do is use as little of the action cards as possible. Because the only way to get action cards back from the discard pile is by finding food and eating food. And there's a few other small events that might give you some back, but essentially you need to find food to survive, because that replenishes your energy. So yeah, essentially, so for example, if you want to have a look at the cliff, it'll turn around and it'll say that you need to turn over 1 card and you're looking for 1 success. So in the action cards, these action cards have multiple different things on them. First of all, it has a number of stars or half stars, which can be used to measure a success. And they also can be used for items. So there might be an item that you can use during the game. So when you turn over these cards, so say you turn over 3 cards, you can put 2 of those cards in the discard pile and choose to keep 1 card in your hand. So, for example, maybe you have a card there which is a torch. Now, it's not a physical torch. It's an idea for you to make a torch. But that will go into your hand. And sometime later in the game, you can decide to use that idea to make a torch, which you can then use to complete other actions and other missions. So, yeah, so what you're trying to do is you have these things that you want to do on each terrain tile. They each have a target. They each have a number of cards you have to turn over. You turn over the relevant number of cards to get that number of successes. Now, generally it's not fixed. So it might say, turn over a minimum of 1 card. You're looking for 1 success. You might decide to turn over 2 cards and have a better chance of getting the success. If you do it right, you then turn over or put into play a card which is represented on the terrain card itself, which is another clue or another facet of the game. So, for example, that permanent event, when you look at the cliff, it puts the permanent event card into play, which allows you to go and climb the cliff. But to climb the cliff, you need to turn over, say, 3 cards and you look for 2 successes. So you might want to find something that will help you climb the cliff, like some rope. Or you can try it. And if you fail, something bad will happen. That's essentially the game.
Yeah. Now, when Mike talks about ideas of stuff,
things,
yeah, basically, it's the other way to think about it. These are items that can be crafted. If you have if you use sufficient time, i.e. you burn through your activity deck, or if you have sufficient resource. Each area or each terrain tile you have on the board is abundant in one or more resources. So you can use those resources in order to help you craft your items. Similarly, okay, one thing we haven't talked about yet are characters. The party has a load of different characters. Now, these are all like from turn of the century, and they are characters from history and fiction. So you have the likes of H.P. Lovecraft. You have Victor Frankenstein. Who else do you have?
Please note, Dr. Frankenstein is not the monster, and yet he is.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, yes. He is the monster.
Yeah. And what?
What's the saying? Intelligence is knowing that that Frankenstein is not the monster. Wisdom is realizing he is.
Indeed. Yes.
Very, very deep. Very deep. I was going to say, don't ask me to name the characters because I can't remember them.
Okay, fair enough.
I have the list here.
Go on, then.
Excellent.
We have Dmitry Gorchov, Fernando Lachapelier, Elliot Pendleton, Keelan McCluskey, Victor Frankenstein, Howard Phillips Lovecraft, Mary Kingsley, Phileas Flogg and Patpatu, and Anjika Patel. The last two being in the second Kickstarter as stretch goals. The rest are all now in the base game.
Right. Okay, so as I say, heroes of turn of the century fiction. Now, each of these heroes, they have specific skills, which usually means that they can perform. I mean, you have a number of actions you can perform, and when I say a number, I mean you're talking 20, 30 different actions that you can perform. Now, all these are on their icons. I mean, luckily you have a really good reference card. But you have icons on the board that tell you, okay, if you want to do this, it's this type of action. You know, it's a search, it's an explore, it's a walk, it's a shoot, or what have you. And each character can perform certain actions better. So they get a bonus for performing those actions. Similarly, as part of the activity deck, you have character skill cards specific to your character, which are in that deck, which you can draw during the game and add to your hand. Right. However, the upshot is you have a hand limit on the amount of, basically on the amount of items you can hold in your hand. Also, you have a limit on the amount of items that you can physically carry. And this is dependent upon the number of players playing the game. Okay, the more players playing the game, the less each individual player can physically carry or hold in their hand. It's a bit of a balancing. It's a bit of a balancing mechanism. So it is one of those things of you draw a card, and there are times when it's a case of, oh, it's a really good card, but is it as good as the cards I already have in my hand? Because sometimes it's a case of, oh, I already have 3 blue cards. I've drawn another blue card. I can only hold 3 in my hand. Which one do I get rid of? So you got those sort of decisions going on all the time. Yeah. Now, if people are wondering, when you say, oh, what on earth is going on as far as this all this exploring and what have you, think back to your youth, and especially if you're people of a certain age, at some point, I am sure you will have owned a copy of Warlock of Firetop Mountain.
Oh yeah,
yes, indeed. And some of us may even still, and failing that, any of the fighting fantasy books, the Lone Wolf books, and all that. Basically, the choose your own adventure novels, which were very, very popular for a time and are still, popular among certain people. So when you start talking about picking cards up, and exploring the continent, and this means that this goes. Remember when you used to look at numbers in Choose Your Own Adventures? You're at paragraph 13.
Mm-hmm.
If you go left, go to paragraph 45. If you go right, go to paragraph 70. It's that, but in board game form or card form. It's that mechanic, isn't it?
Mostly because there is absolutely no freaking way you'd fit it in a book.
Well, quite.
And it has the great advantage of, because there are a number of clever mechanisms involving things like doing arithmetic on card numbers to get the next card, there are things that you can do with a deck of cards, like expandability, adding things in, that there's no way you could do with a book.
True.
Yeah. It's very clever, because what we haven't mentioned is to look at. So you basically go, right, I'm on a swing towel. I got one to the north, one to the west. So they're sort of foggy cards. You say, right, I'm going to turn over the one on the west. Now that could be anything. And if it could be something like you've just disturbed a cephalopod who now comes to attack you, or it could be you've noticed some weird pebbles on the ground in a weird shape. So it could be like a little quiz. It could be a physical thing. You don't have to engage with that. You basically say, "Oh, I've seen that, but I'm not going to go any further. I can just see there's something there." Sometimes you have to engage with them because they make you. Usually, you can sort of hold back until you're ready to face that. But when you've passed that test, the next terrain tile is put into place, which makes the map a little bit bigger, and then you can cross into that terrain tile by using some of your actions. So the more you explore, the more of your action deck you're burning through. But there's things you can do to mitigate that. For example, if you're in a party of two or more, it makes the travel less expensive. If you're going to, if you're traveling towards another character, it makes the travel less expensive. If you put a fire into place, that also makes the travel less expensive. And it's only the travel of the card that you're leaving. So say you've got 4 terrain tiles in the road, you want to go back to the first one, you only pay to leave that terrain tile. You don't have to pay for each one intervening. So there is pros and cons for splitting up the party and investigating individually. If there's multiple people playing, carrying out one quest, it makes it easier because you can band resources. So for example, if you get attacked by a bear, and the two of you have got fighting weapons, you can use those to give you advantages in the combat. So basically, it gives you passes already.
It's also interesting, one of those games where splitting the party is actually useful.
Yes, because you can cover more ground and you can come back together. So you tend to do a bit of the way me and Mark play is we basically go off individually, search a couple of tiles, and then come back. So when you turn over these extra terrain tiles, there's so much information on there. You really have to look at them because they can have hidden numbers that if you spot the number, you basically put that numbered card in place instead of the one you just picked up. So the map is set.
It's a bit, it's a bit like spotting a secret door in a dungeon, isn't it?
Yeah. Very, very, very clever. So the map itself is set, but the scenarios take place on that map. The scenarios don't drive the map, if that makes sense. So I think your when you say about Warlock of Firetoff Mountain, that's a good one because you can map out the whole continent if you want to. You could put all the cards out and map out the whole continent.
Indeed, one of the Kickstarter stretch goals is an atlas to allow you to do that.
Yes, this is very useful. But what it doesn't do is because you're doing one of the scenarios, it doesn't just take you along a route. You can go anywhere in this continent. It's up to you to work out the clues that you find and the clues that you got at the beginning to work out where you should be going. Because it's not going to tell you. There won't be a signpost going, go this way for the idol of whatever, You have to remember what you've done, and you collect these clues, you collect little items, and you have this journal where you can put all your experience into, your experience points and your little things that you remember. These little items that may come up, which they're called quest items. Might be a little bit of information there. There might be this bush that gives you might help you to recover from an injury.
Spoiler
alert. However, you don't know what that bush means unless you've found that little bit of intelligence, because that bush will just be something on one of the trains maps. You don't know what it is, but if you found the quest item that tells you what it is, you can then use it to your benefit. And the other things you got states, so you can get wounded, tired, paranoid, and all of these have a detrimental effect on you.
Yeah, and if you're really unlucky, the very first time you move, you end up getting injured.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. And basically, you can either treat the injury or you can wander around with the injury, but the injury essentially makes it harder for you to do stuff, which basically means you're burning through more cards whenever you perform any sort of check. So, staying injured for a long time without attempting to deal with the injury is not necessarily a good thing. And the whole idea, again, with this action deck and looking for a number of, for want of a better phrase, successes, it's a push your luck sort of mechanic. So what it does, it tells you, okay, right, you need to draw a minimum of this number of cards. And there is a matrix in the book which says, okay, for this number of successes, this is the percentage chance you have within the deck of getting this number of successes whenever you draw this number of cards. Do you feel lucky? Is basically what it boils down to. Right, okay, so it's like, okay, right, I need 3 successes. Okay, and what you can do is you can consult the table and say, right, in order to get 3 successes, if I draw 3 cards, I have a 45% chance of getting 3 successes. Do I want, and obviously each activity has a piece of text which says, congratulations, you were successful. Do this. But you also have a piece of text saying, you were unsuccessful. Do this. So, basically, you have to mitigate, because you don't get to go, oh, I've only got 3 successes, I'll draw another card. You have to draw the cards before you find out how many successes you've got. So it's definitely a case of, do you want to take the risk, use less cards with the risk that you might not be successful, or do you want to take more cards and so that you're pretty sure you're going to succeed in what you're doing? But there's that payoff is the more cards you use, the more life force you use. You have to replenish that, otherwise you die quick. So there's a constant trade-off between how much risk do I want to take in trying to complete an action compared to how much of my life force for the group do I want to use in trying to achieve that action in the first place.
The other thing that's worth mentioning with this game is it has a very, very clever save mechanism.
Yes, because this is a big game.
Yeah, so to give you an idea, myself and my mate Mark, we played the first scenario, the beginner's scenario, and we played for about 16 hours, and we nearly completed it until we died. So what it does, when you're playing through it, these terrain cards and these action cards you have, there may be 2 or 3 of those cards in place. So, say for example, you find an idol, and it'll say, right, you can look at the idol, choose card number 270, and when you go to cards 270, there's 2 of them. You have to pick one of them. Usually one is good and one is bad, but you don't know. You pick one at random, turn over that card, you take that effect. That may lead on then to pulling out another task once you've completed that particular.
And of course, sometimes it's take the version of this card with this colour back until you've reached state this, in which case you take the version with this colour back.
Yeah. So it'll actually say as a keyword which is discard. And what you do is with those cards, they actually basically they go out of the game. So basically, if you try to do something more than once, it remembers that when you save the game. So those cards are removed from the game until you finish the scenario. So the game does remember where you are. But the save mechanism is really, really clever, because what you do is all of the characters come onto one particular terrain card. You then take up all of the terrain cards that you've got around that, and you file those away, and you put them back into the relevant parts in the box. You then, for each of the characters, you take the character cards, you take any ill effects they have underneath that, any bonus cards they have, and then the items. Whenever you make an item, it has a number of times it can be used, and you can actually combine items together, which you probably should have mentioned. But each of these have a number. So what you do, you take all of the cards in that particular item, and you put a special save game card above it with the number of lives left for that item at the top. So say you've got a bow that you can use 4 times. You put the card with a 4 on top of the bow, and then you put your extra items underneath it, and that gives you a little pack for your character. You do that for all the characters. You then take what's left of the action deck and put that underneath it with a divider. You then take the discard pile and put that underneath with a divider, and you end up with about 100 cards, and that's your save. So the next time you play, you take that save deck, you put the terrain tile in place on its own, you put your cards on top, you split out the character information, you take out the action deck, you take out the discard pile, you're ready to go.
And fundamentally, you end up as if you'd camped, woken up the following day, all the scenario hooks are in the right state, but your random monsters may be different.
Yeah. Basically, so you don't have to rebuild the entire map. You just start again. But you've got an idea, you sort of remember, like, we need to go this way. Yeah. So you basically start exploring again.
Yeah, and as we said, with the way the cards work between scenarios, for example, if you've gone to a particular area and you've done some hunting, it may be a case of you've actually caught all the food that there is to catch in that particular area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on a previous game. So what will have happened is that those cards would have been discarded into I think is it banished area or something like that?
Yeah, you banish them. Yeah.
And then basically there is this different colour card. So rather than a green card, you'll have a yellow card. Okay, which is the card you will encounter if you go to that area again. And that yellow card, rather than saying, "Oh, you can search here and search for food," will come back and go, "Oh, there's no. It appears that this area is now devoid of life. It appears that somebody's eaten all the food."
Or equally, you can have one, and I'm not. This is making an example up where there's a greenback card with a tree on it, and some actions later there is a yellow card with a felled tree on it.
Indeed. Yeah. Yes, but there's
and the felled tree may get you across a chasm or something.
Yes, I mean there's as I say,
very elegant system.
Yeah, so it's that sort of thing. So if if a piece of terrain permanently changes state due to something that you do in the game, until you physically reset the entire box for a new scenario, the whole game effectively remembers where you are. And this save game mechanism basically means that yes, the following morning, the following day, it's as if you are in you're starting the game again, but obviously you hopefully remember where you've been,
and your actions have persistent consequences.
Indeed,
yeah.
It's a very clever and elegant.
The thing that boggles me is, for the minimal amount of bookkeeping you, the player, have to do, the amount of bookkeeping that must have gone into the scenario design just beggars belief.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's totally unique, I think. I haven't seen a game like it. The other thing that's worth mentioning is there's no turn sequence. You've got your characters, you're on a terrain map. You decide
Who
what you
would
want
it benefit us for to go next?
Yeah. Do we go together? Do we go individually? What do you want to do? So there's loads of communication between the players trying to work out what we're going to do.
We did mention it was a cooperative game, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. Totally cooperative. But
Yeah.
you sort of find yourself looking at a map going, okay, what's that by there? You know, who's going to go and have a look at that one? Does somebody want to come with me? Because if you do things on your own, any bad effects happen to you.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like, sometimes I'm not saying this happened at all, but sometimes when you're off wandering around on your own, and somebody's effectively waiting for somebody else to catch up, and decides that well while I'm here I'll just look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dots.
Yeah.
Really? Did you have to do that?
Yeah. And it is so clever because at certain parts of the game, you basically go into a new level. So, for example, in the very first scenario, you start off on a small island and you have to get off that island. Now, there's lots of ways you can leave the island, but when you eventually do it, you will all basically move to the next, shall we say, level almost. It's almost like going to the next level of a dungeon. So everybody goes together to the next thing. You start off then on a new terrain tile. You get rid of you get rid of the island that you've just investigated. You start on a new terrain tile with this new area you need to now explore. And there's loads of that. You might find like an entrance to a dungeon. And if you go down there, you basically start doing a bit of dungeon bashing. There's lots of these little sort of doorways into other parts, and the new expansion that's coming out includes flight, so you can get a hot air balloon and start drifting across the island in a hot air balloon, which is why we got Phileas Fogg. But yeah, it's a totally unique game. I know it's not out for retail, which is a bit of a shame. So anybody who's listening to it
and in fact may never be.
Yeah.
Which is a really awkward thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think it may be a case of, well, I mean, they've already run a Kickstarter for a second print edition. For a second printing, and it may
$7 million.
Yes, it may indeed be the fact that if they want to do another one, that's how they'll do it again.
Yeah.
Considering the size of the game, it's almost impractical to send it to retail.
Yeah.
But word of mouth has got around so much, and some very prominent and influential people think very highly of this game. I remember. I think since for example, this is Tom Vassel's favourite adventure game. He basically turns around and says, "Having played this, I do not need to play any other adventure game," sort of thing. So there's a lot of people who really like it. So the chances that it might end up with at some point doing another print run, I would imagine that there would be a market for it.
Yeah, definitely. And so if you do see one up for sale, it's worth getting hold of. It really is like I say, I mean, it's just fantastic. It's a game that makes you think. It's a game that makes you talk to the other players. Yeah, it's just a delightfully interesting game.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that is Seventh Continent. I mean, it's an adventure game, but one with a big difference. But is incredibly clever. Well worth looking at.
It's worth noting that we did actually talk about it briefly in episode, I think, 232.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect, and I know Hobbsy raved about it then, but listeners may want to go back and see how his opinion has changed. Answer, not very much, I think.
No, I still love it. It's one of those games I really want to play again.
But yeah, you I think we had it in your things what I have been playing section, and you did go on a bit, but you went on even more this time. So.
Well, this is more of a review of.
Yeah, and it's why I bought it.
Yeah, cool. And to be honest, when Hobbsy first went on about it, is the reason why I've ended up playing it, because my other mate Dave heard Hobbsy going on about it. We then spoke. Mike showed it us at Cardiff, and we subsequently, he subsequently ordered it because it was the Kickstarter reprint was on at the time. So
same reason I did.
Yeah, indeed. So there we go. Seventh Continent. Hopefully, for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to get it or play it, there may be another reprint coming at some point.
But if not, you can safely expect that the base game will be going on eBay for stupid money. Rumor has it. I mean, the Kickstarter basic set plus all the expansion scenarios was a set $249, I think. Apparently, that's going for about 600.
Yeah.
If folks remember what I shifted a couple of unopened Kickstarters for, is unfortunately about half of the course when things don't make it to retail.
Indeed. Right. Okay. So that's Seventh Continent.
We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, would you like to support us? There's a couple of ways of doing so. You can become a patron of the show by supporting us on our Patreon page. There you can give regularly every time we produce a show. Alternatively, you may want to give a one-off donation, and you can do that by using PayPal. For more details on both these options, please click on the Donate tab on our website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk.
So then, Mr. Hobbs.
Yes.
Mr. Hobbs, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Following on from some of the news that came out of an event that happened the last weekend as we are recording this. I seem to remember back in the day that other than Epic, your favoritist game
Yes.
was Adeptus Titanicus.
Yes. It's coming
Yes.
back out again.
Yeah, so what do you think? What do you think of the new edition? And more to the point, what do you think of the new scale?
They're big. Yeah, it's. I think it's great. It's coming back out again. I'm really pleased that they're going back and they're producing a Titan game. The scale of the models, okay, it's not going to work with my Epic figures because they're bloody huge. They're quarter size from 40k. So a Warlord Titan looks about the similar size to one of the 40k Knights.
40k Knights, yeah, quite, yeah.
It's about 6 inches high. So they're chunky. But when you sort of look at the number of people who still play the original Epic and have Titans, it's a very small number, as opposed to...
I hate to break this to you, but isn't that pretty close to 6 mil scale and therefore correct?
No, they say it's about 10 mil. The original Titans were about 3 inches high, if that.
Yeah.
These are huge.
Okay, wait a minute. So, stop, rewind. Why am I bothering to argue about realistic scale of a fantasy game?
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, let's face it. I saw a picture. Somebody tweeted a picture of the original Epic Scale Warlord Titan compared to the new Adeptus Titanicus Titan, and basically the original Warlord Titan came up to its knee. That was about right, wasn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So the new Warlord Titan is something like between 4 and 5 times the size of the old Epic Scale. I have heard a rumor that they basically turned around and said this is the most expensive base game that Games Workshop will ever produce.
Yeah, it's going to cost a bomb.
They reckon about £300 for a base game.
No, but how much? It's all plastic.
Ow!
Yeah,
I
but
reckon it'll come out for 150.
But even so, because they reckon it's going to have 3 or 4 Titans in it, plus the scenery. Because I mean, that is one thing worth noting. They have redone the scenery, haven't they? And the new scenery does look really nice.
It all looks gorgeous.
It does.
I was looking at those Titans thinking, I really do fancy getting that, but I wouldn't use it for my Epic games because I have enough Titans anyway. I just need to paint them. Yes, I know I've had them for 25 years. I'll get around to them. But I'm really chuffed to see it come out. I really am. I know it's a different scale. They are talking about bringing out infantry and vehicles. That'll be interesting. It's almost like a 15 mil game. That's what it sort of looks like. It's almost like, I'm kind of chuffed. I'm kind of chuffed it's coming out. And I don't know if I'll buy the box set, but they are releasing the Titans individually. I might buy a nice big Titan to paint up. Just as just to have.
Yeah. They do look very, as you say, the models wise,
gorgeous.
Yeah. If you're into, if you happen to be a fan of that sort of thing, they are particularly nice.
Yeah. They've literally done the knights exactly the same as the 40k knights, but they're about the same size as a standard Space Marine. I'm not even one of the new Space Marines, one of the old Space Marines. No, they're so
at least they're not doing them in 28.
Yeah. Forge World have done 28 Titans. 28 Titans.
Someone down our club has a 28 mil Orc Gargant.
Yeah.
Somebody I know has a 28 mil Warhead.
No, I sold it.
Oh. Sorry, somebody I know used to have a 28 mil Warhead.
Yeah, I got rid of that ages ago. But yeah, it's lovely, and it'd be good to see it come back out again. I'd like to have a look at the rules. But it's good the Games Workshop are revisiting the Horus Heresy, because up till now it's really just been Forge World, I think, have been doing that. So I think they realise there is quite a bit of money. There's quite a lot of people who are interested in playing 30k, with just Marines versus Marines.
It does seem to be, especially looking at a couple of people who went to various seminars. Quick shout out to Leaky Cheese on Twitter, who's a guy who I played a game of test. I won against, but he was tweeting from there, and an awful lot of the seminars were talking about effectively 30k Horus Heresy stuff. Various bits and pieces, and of course the other bit of news from that, finally, for so many people are saying finally, it looks like they're producing Sisters of Battle in plastic.
Yeah, they are.
Well, given the other manufacturer who was producing something not dissimilar, they probably had to.
Indeed. Yes, although fair to say, depending on whose social media you follow, the subsequent discussions regarding the Plastic Sisters of Battle may or may not have courted some controversy.
Yeah.
They always have.
Yeah,
Just
indeed.
stick him up. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, it's an interesting one, isn't it? As you say, yeah, because effectively, I mean, some people, and a lot of people turn around and go, "Oh, it's just 40k BattleTech."
Yeah. But it's Titans, it's cool. Titans are always cool.
Well, some would argue that mechs are always cool, but there we go.
Yeah.
They are. Cool. Right, okay, so, are we about done, chaps?
No, we're not. I have a listener question. Our listener writes, yes, in this case, it's Paul Wiskin.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul.
Apologies. I'm not quite sure which of you is the 3D printing advocate and which is the resistance fighter. Well, free clue, we're both called Mike. Which, to be fair, he wrote to Mike and I, so I guess he knows this. I'm the evangelist. He's the heretic, basically.
I am coming on a bit, though.
Anyway, Paul writes, I have succumbed to the temptation and bought entry-level DaVinci XYZ Junior 1.0, which, I will say, is actually a pretty decent purchase. There, if you are not of the... how can I put this? If you are a Linux computer user, then you are familiar with the concept of, I need a new tool, I better build it. Well, a lot of the entry-level 3D printers are a bit. I don't like this bit of it. I'll replace it. There's a certain degree of, and there's a very laudable do-it-yourself. Talk to your mate with a 3D printer to get this part printed. Here's an MDF cut kit of parts kind of ethos about the whole thing, which is not a bad thing. But then I'm a Mac user, so I like my hardware to turn up assembled and working, which is why I've got the CEL Robox. And the DaVinci Junior is basically about a 300 quid mark. Very nice, entry level. Take it out of the box, plug it in, stick into filament, feed it a design, and it prints. Beast. So from that point of view, excellent purchase if you want to get on with printing and your idea of fun is not making your printer work. And I think I've made it fairly clear from that which side of the fence I sit on, but that's entirely because I'd rather get on and 3D print than do engineering. I understand some people find the engineering side of it fun, and I'm not knocking that. It's just not for me.
That sounds a perfectly reasonable position to me.
Absolutely, which is why I'm sitting here with a Macintosh doing the audio, video, visual stuff, because it works.
I couldn't agree with that less, but there we go.
Well, that's your problem. But there you go. You see, yeah, to each their own. I know, for example, that quite a few of our listeners have things like Ultimakers and the like, which are very much the hobbyist printer, in the sense that part of your hobby is then making your printer do cooler things than it originally came out of the box to do. And that's fine. That's cool. That's great. That's groovy. Not for me. Anyway, and not for Paul either, by the sounds of it. The DaVinci, I must admit, I considered quite seriously. The only reason I went for the Robox is I had enough money to, and it has a slightly larger print bed than the DaVinci, which has occasionally proved useful. So, we return to Paul's email. My questions to the relevant Mike are, do you design your own stuff? And using which software? So, yeah, I do. Those of you who were at Salute will have seen the ship, the SMS Kingani, which was a 3D print. I've done some buildings, etc., etc., etc. There are three things I use. One is Google SketchUp, which is originally Google's architecture CAD thing. It's really designed for drawing buildings and the like. But you can get a couple of plugins which turn it into a proper solid modeler. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of with 3D printing is you can't just pass it a dimension drawing and expect magic to happen. You actually do have to have a 3D object in which your design software, and thus your printing software, understands the difference between this bit is solid material and this bit is not. And if you don't have that, you'll have problems. Now, SketchUp is nice and intuitive to use, but I have found it can be a bit of... It's also free, which is good, unless you want the Pro version, which isn't. It can be a bit of a headache for actually ensuring that what you have is solid and not inside out or something else. It's very possible with SketchUp to get a solid which other software thinks is inside out or has faces the wrong way. You can have the concept of whether a face is normal points into the solid or out of the solid, and things can get all slightly messed up. So it's great for simple things. As soon as you get vaguely complicated, it can get a bit hairy. I did several of my buildings in SketchUp, and I do quite enjoy it, though. It's quite a nice piece of software. The other two that I use, another one that is free is Tinkercad, and that's actually web-based, which is absolutely brilliant because it means it doesn't matter what hardware you've got, provided it's man enough to run the in-browser code that Tinkercad has. Now, that's really nice because all of its basic design elements are solids. You build things by taking a cube and sticking it to another cube, drilling a cylinder through it, that kind of thing. Which means it's very occasionally buggy, and sometimes your joining together and taking away operations can return results which don't match what you expect them to. But it does have a wide range of what you'd call primitives. So you've got spheres, cylinders, cones, truncated cones, all the obvious semi-primitive shapes, and you can pull one of those in, stretch it, drag it, and shrink it and grow it to the size you need it to be. Stick it next to your bit of the model, click on both of them, and say join it together, or turn it, or you can take a cylinder, put it through your model, tell Tinkercad it's a hole rather than a solid, and then glue the two together, and it'll drill a hole through the thing. And that's how I built the Kingani, which was quite hard work because the front profile of the bow is quite curved, and making that in Tinkercad was actually quite hard. But if you have a reasonable amount of patience. Oh, the other thing I did in Tinkercad were the gates for Gasland. If you've seen those on the Millhouse Studios blog, those were done using Tinkercad. The nice thing Tinkercad does, which Google SketchUp you have to fight to make it do, is exports to .stl, which is the file format that 3D printers expect. Now, the other one I have just discovered, and I appreciate this is not going to work for everybody, if you have a decent new iPad, in fact, if you have an iPad Pro, get yourself an Apple Pencil and get a copy of ShapeR 3D, because it's brilliant. I'm slightly biased in that before I was a software developer for all the people I've been a software developer for, I worked for a company who originally called Shape Data, and I think are now called Parasolid, who built a solid modeling engine, a proper engineering grade, you've flown in airplanes designed using it engineering CAD system, or basically the solid modeling bit at the heart of it, the bit that actually glues solids together and handles that. And ShapeR 3D, it's a measure of how far computer technology has come in the 35 years I've been doing it. 25 years I've been doing it. I'm not that old. 25 years I've been doing it. That solid modeling kernel will now fit on an iPad. And ShapeR 3D, if you are prepared to shell out the 90 quid for an Apple Pencil and happen to own an iPad Pro, is worth every penny. It's a beautiful piece of software, and it allows you to design pretty much what you want. You can draw outlines and then stretch them up into solids. So if you've got a weird shaped ship hull, you can draw it and then stretch it, and it'll turn out right. And that's a really, really nice piece of software. And if you have, as I said, if you have an iPad Pro, it's free for anything short of fundamentally designing real-life aircraft turbine blades, and will produce quality enough outputs to 3D print. And I would strongly recommend getting that. slightly glazed and silent at the other end of the call here, I suspect, since nobody else does this as much as I do.
No, I was listening and taking it all in.
Well, that's a nice thing. Next question. The next two I don't have as long answers, fortunately. Do you use a scanner? No. Simple answer to that one. I've not 3D scanned objects. It's both a difficult problem and a pricey problem in that anything that's decent costs money. And quite honestly, I've not yet found a need to do so. So as yet, no, I don't have any recommendations. I've not played with anything. And the final question he has is, any recommended links to good download sites for 3D printing files in the 6mm wargame area? Now, if you've listened to me in the past, you know what I'm going to say. Go to Thingiverse. Look for M_Bergman, who is a chap who is actually a professional design engineer by trade and designs 1/200th scale tanks in his lunch break for fun. And they're free. And they will scale, if you've got a good enough printer, they will scale down to 1/285th, 1/300th for 6mm. The likely problem you might have is the gun barrels. If all else fails, frankly, print it without the gun barrel and Dremel in a piece of filament or a piece of plastic rod into a hole, and you'll do fine. Paul writes a little bit later to say, today I printed my first tanky 1285 from Marcus Bergman, and I would say it's better than irregular miniatures, but not quite up to GHQ standard. Perfectly acceptable for wargaming. And I concur, and I think Neil will too, because he's had a couple of 1/100th prints of Marcus Bergman designs, which are surprisingly good.
Indeed, and also, yes, and also you've done a couple of shits for me for X-Wing as well, which
yes,
which
I'm actually sitting
nice.
here holding a Marcus Bergman 1/100th Crusader anti-aircraft variant, which a scenario I ran recently called for, and it's lovely. The only issue you do have is because of the way 3D printers work, which is that they deposit, which the way budget 3D printers work, which is they deposit layers of filament one on top of the other. If you've got something with lots of overhangs, you do wind up having to print lots of breakaway supports and then clean them out, which is at some points can take almost as long as printing the damn thing in the first place. So, those were Paul's questions. He goes on to say, thanks for any tips. Maybe a little section could be included in the podcast, as this is a growing area of the hobby. Not my podcast, mate. Ask Neil.
I'm sure, since we have somebody who 3D printing is now their particular expertise, this is a subject we can regularly come back to.
I think we do anyway, don't we?
Well, we do, yeah. But I mean, especially once we get to our once we come back off our summer break with our we will be revising the show makeup slightly.
And I will add lessons learned this week, and it really is my own stupid fault, and I do know that, and I should know better. Most of the 3D printing filaments you can use with a filament deposition printer, particularly PLA, which is the one most people use, are hydroscopic. If you leave it attached to the printer such that it starts picking up atmospheric water, it will get wet, it will get brittle, and it will break. So once you finish printing, take it off the printer and put it back in its little bag with its little thing of silica gel, put it back in its box, and leave it there. Michael, you idiot. So I now have a piece of filament stuck in my printer that I've got to get out before I print this blooming shit tomorrow. Yeah. Basically, PLA is somewhat hydroscopic. It does absorb water from the atmosphere. The end result becomes somewhat brittle. Don't do it.
Oopsie.
Yeah, oopsie. My own stupid fault. I know this. I've been told it any number of times. I've done it any number of times. I got sidetracked largely because I was rushing to print off the first version of the Kingani for Salute, and completely forgot that I'd left the filament on the printer and it stayed there for about a week.
Can you dry it afterwards? Get it back,
Rumour has it you can. I'm exploring that possibility, but I have in the meantime ordered some new filament just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, idiot things not to do. That's why it comes in little bags with silica gel, not just for the good of, not just because somebody thought it was a neat idea.
Uh-huh. Cool. Well,
so there you go. First reader's mail for a while.
Indeed. Thank you, Paul.
Much appreciated, mate.
Indeed. So, all that remains to be said. I think we're done, aren't we?
Yeah. So
yeah, cool.
We are.
Well, thank you for thank you for the questions, Paul. I hope Mike's in-depth response has helped. And yes, as I say, we've got listener questions for episode 250. Don't forget. And then as a reminder, if you didn't hear on the last show, we're going to be taking a break for a couple of months. So there will be no official Meeples and Miniatures podcasts for July and August. There might be the odd piece of audio coming out, especially on the Patreon. On the Patreon side of things, I might be producing the odd video or audio on that side of things, but there won't be anything kind of officially Meeples and Miniatures podcasty around. Also, I might be producing. I'm trying to sort out, a regular video sort of thing that preferably doesn't take place in the car. But for those of you who've seen my videos from videos from the car, which I was recording in my lunch break at work. I'm trying to sort of set out a kind of a studio or what have you to kind of get all that sorted out. That hopefully I might be able to achieve that over the summer. As part and parcel of our new and different things we're going to be doing come September, hopefully there'll be some more of that sort of content. However, in the meantime,
I should also point out that I'm likely to be on the next Lodi's Oddcast briefly.
Are you?
Yeah, Rich. Nick wants to grill me about what I thought of What a Tanker. I think.
Oh right,
we've got that scheduled for Partisan.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well then, okay, so in that case then, you have been warned. All that remains to be said is thank you once again for joining us. Thank you to our resident bard. Thank you, Mr. Whittaker.
You're welcome.
And thank you, of course, to the Welsh Wizard, with whom this especially this particular show would not be the same.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Meeps. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike.
Nice. And we shall, thank you finally, one and all. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to catching up with you again in a couple of weeks' time. So, in the meantime, happy gaming. Take care. We'll speak to you in a couple of weeks.
Bye-bye. All good dice.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.